This is Tim Staten with Tim Stating the Obvious. What is this podcast about? It's simple. You are entitled to great leadership everywhere you go, whether it's to church, whether it's to work, whether it's at your house, you are entitled to great leadership. And so in this podcast, we take leadership principles and theories and turn them into everyday, relatable, and usable advice.
And a quick disclaimer. This show, process, or service by trademark manufacturer, or otherwise does not necessarily constitute an implied endorsement of anyone that I employed by or favors them in representation. The views are expressed here in my show are my own expressed and do not necessarily state or reflect those of any employer.
Hey, and welcome back to another episode of Tim Stating the Obvious. And in this episode, we're going to be talking with Katia Rave In. She's a leadership and entrepreneur expert, mother of three, and entrepreneur extraordinaire, with a passion for empowering entrepreneurs and professionals worldwide. Through her company, Rave Strategy Studio, Katia provides tools and guidance for entrepreneurs to turn their dreams into successful ventures. But Katia's impact doesn't stop there. As the author of Winning is Never Accidental, she's on a mission to transform lives with her wealth of knowledge and experience. With over 2 decades in entrepreneurship, 3 published books, and a blended family, Katia knows firsthand the challenges of balancing it all. Join us as she shares her secrets to success, from leadership strategies to personal growth, all while navigating life by the beach in North Carolina with her supportive husband. Get ready to be inspired, empowered, and motivated to become the best version of yourself. We join our conversation now. So Katia, hey, thank you so much for joining us on the show and joining us on this episode.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Tim.
So I know we recently had talked and we had connected, and we were talking about in the last several episodes, we talked to leadership coaches, and I came across your business, and I came across you, and I met you. So can you tell us more about your journey into becoming a business and leadership coach, and what inspired you to write Winning is Never Accidental?
Yes, wow, thank you so much. What a great question. So my background is entrepreneurship. I own businesses, loved owning businesses, was very, very successful at them. And then one of my businesses actually was not as successful. And after 5 years with having the best employees, the best product, I got to close the door, and I took it really, really hard. Basically, I took the failure personally versus taking the failure as neutral. And after that, I was like, that's it. I will never be in business anymore. I went back to school. And of course, what did I generate? I went back to an art school. I became a photojournalist. I went for a Bachelor in Fine Art. Was getting published within my first year of school into a magazine, and then what that drawn was a lot of the students were coming at me. They're like, oh my gosh, you're already successful, you know a lot about business, we're not learning business here, can you coach us? And what happened was, like, I said no, because then suddenly I had this imposter syndrome, feeling like, oh my gosh, how can I teach them when my last business failed? So I decided to dive in, coming from a neutral place, what did not work in my last business. And the moment that I really did that, Tim, the moment that I dived into what did not work and what was in the gap from me, where I was, to the success, I saw so many things. And I was like, oh my gosh, I did not set myself up to win. And therefore, from this moment, I finished, I graduated with honors, got more published, and I was like, this is not, as much as I love photojournalism and owning business, I was like, I really want to support people to know how to run a business, and to know that leadership is a huge part of it. And then winning is not accidental. Championship team, whether it's in the Olympics, whether it's in, the NFL, whether it's in golf, the team set themselves up to win daily. And what does that look like? So that's kind of where I came the concept. And that was now 10 years ago. And I have been coaching, and I'm a transformational trainer as well. So I go and I really teach leadership at a very high level into corporate, into small businesses, medium businesses. So really, really bringing that winning is never accidental to the forefront of our mind every day.
That's really awesome that you've been doing this for 10 years and you kind of took it from a position of, people seeking you out going, hey, you're doing really, really good at this. And, how can you help us get better? And I'm glad that you jumped in on that. And so you honed in on something that I just kind of want to tease out a little bit, where you talked about how you looked at what didn't work in your last business. What were your gaps and, how you didn't set yourself up for success. So how do you define success? And in particular in the context of personal and professional growth, how do we define success and what that is?
Yeah. So how would you define success? So for me, that business failure is a success because it was basically a jump, like when we are on a trampoline, it was a jump into what was going to be next for me. So to answer your question, it's really looking where are you at today and what is success today. So what I really understood and really what I teach and coach and train on is your success thing and my success is maybe totally different. Why? Because we get to meet ourselves where we are at in the moment. So comparison is not at all a way that we can support ourselves and setting up ourselves up to win. For me, it's what is my success tonight? What is my success? I go by 90 days. So first I have huge goal for the year, and then I bring it to where do I get to be for me to achieve this goal in 1 year? Where do I get to be in the next 90 days? And what does that look daily? So daily I have goals. Daily I have success that are measurable. Because success is not just something that we put in the universe and then not moving the needle forward to. So when you have your plan for the year, you break it down in 90 days, and then you break it down daily, then you are really in touch with your results. You're in touch with the scoreboard. If you're not looking at the scoreboard, how will you know then you made a step towards your success?
That's a great way to look at it. And I love the fact that, you talk about your yearly goals and you break them down quarterly and then you break them down daily as well. Because that is something that, I have instinctively have done, over the last several years, especially, with this podcast is actually going after it and growing it. And the fact that you honed in on that and you were like, you got to look at the scoreboard and you said you have to look at your scoreboard because you mentioned that your success could be different than somebody else's, which I thought was really interesting. So in your experience, what are some common challenges that individuals face when striving for personal and professional growth, and how can they overcome these challenges?
Yeah, so we're going to totally feed off and piggyback on what I said to move forward, which is the scoreboard. What I see is people are not intimate, and yes, I use the word intimacy with numbers. So either it's like, oh, I'm not good at math, or oh, I don't want to look. So whether it's with being blind, putting something on your eyes to not see the results, that is the biggest thing that I think is holding people back. They don't want to look at the number of the scale. Why? Because if they look at the numbers on the scale, then they are hit with the reality. Well, to move forward and to be successful, we want to know the reality. We want to know where we at, because then we can see what's in the gap to go where we want to go. So if we're not intimate with the numbers, it's like saying, I'm going to Florida without a GPS. We get to know
right.
the starting point. Imagine I'm going to Florida. I know I want to go to, I don't know, Disney World. Let's say, well, no, we're going to pick something more fun. Key West. I want to go to Key West, and and I don't know where I'm starting from. I could be starting from Maine, or I could be starting from North Carolina, or from Georgia, or from California. Well, the route is going to be very different depending on where I'm starting from. So then being intimate with the numbers, whether it's the numbers in your bank account, in your finances, the numbers in your health, the numbers in your business, you really get to know where you're at. And that is the mistake that I see most people doing. They don't know how much there is in their bank account. Because if they don't look, they think that that is not the reality. And the fact is, whether they look or not, the reality is the sales number is still the sales number, whether they weigh themselves. Their bank account is still the same number, whether they look at it or not. And their business numbers and the numbers of clients is the exact same thing. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. So you're saying that the biggest struggle you're finding that with people is the avoidance behaviors. They don't want to look at the numbers, and they don't want to get intimate with, where are you really at? What is reality?
Yeah. They live in a fantasy world.
Wow.
So they get themselves busy with other things, not being in touch with the results. So it's just, basically, like not having a compass, not knowing where they're going if they don't know the starting point.
So I just you mentioned it was very interesting to me where you said people are busy with other things. And all too often I find people saying, oh, I'm really, really busy. I'm busy doing this. I'm busy doing that. And I kind of feel like people are like a tire in a mud. It's spinning and there's lots of stuff going everywhere, but it's not going anywhere. Can you really talk about what are some real world things that you have seen that would be busy other things that people find themselves into pitfalls and keeping themselves from success?
Yeah. What an amazing follow-up question, Tim, because this is huge. People busy themselves. That's where they feel like, oh, I'm busy, so I'm doing something, and yet it's not aligned with their vision. So I actually do not believe in overwhelm. I do not believe in busyness. I am abundant. So I am abundant in everything I choose, and everything I choose to do, I look at what's my vision. And we're going to take you, for example. Here I am on a podcast. I said yes to invest the time to be on the podcast. Why? Because it's aligned with my vision. So everything is aligned with my vision, I'm a yes. Everything was not aligned with my vision, I'm a no. So already I'm eliminating a bunch of things. I have no problem saying no because I'm like, oh, that's not aligned with my vision. The second thing is I see people getting busy as an avoidance, as a resistance. So they get themselves, quote unquote, busy with creating a new program in their business or doing errands and they do not need to do during the week to avoid the reality of picking up the phone maybe and calling clients or doing things that are money generating. So they keep themselves busy with things who at the end of the day will not move them towards their success. And it's this resistance, avoidance. So yeah, it keeps them busy in time versus being abundant with creating time everywhere.
So you mentioned this abundance mindset,
Yeah.
and I'm not quite sure people understand what that is. So can you elaborate on really what is the difference between being an overwhelmed, busy mindset and an abundance mindset? Like, what's the difference?
Yeah. So when you are busy means for me, frantic. And I don't do frantic. Okay? Then overwhelm is taking things who are not aligned. Why would you be overwhelmed when you pick and choose things who are towards your vision? You don't. You're doing overwhelmed because you maybe didn't have the power to say no to someone. Maybe you were feeling bad or feeling guilty to say, no, I will not do that. No, I will not take this and put this on my plate because it's not aligned with my vision. So there is a lot of underlying things that why we don't say no. For me, everything I choose, because it's not I have to, because I'm choosing to, it's abundance. All of the things that are coming my way, I look at it as it's abundance. I have abundant people, an abundance of people who are reaching out to me, who want me, just like you. You found me somewhere on LinkedIn, and I received your email, and one of my first questions to you was like, hey, what's the intention of this? And when I got your response back, I was like, oh my gosh, that's totally aligned with my vision. Let me look at this podcast. Wow, of course, this is abundance. I have offers who come my way all the time. Hey, Katia, can you teach a training? Let me ask. Is the training towards leadership, business, anything was a part of my vision where I can support people doing that? If it's a yes, I'm like, great, I'll create the time. I'm excited about it. So there is a very big difference into a have to. The have to makes you busy and overwhelmed. The I'm choosing to, I'm creating time for this because it's aligned with my vision, is abundant.
Okay. That is an awesome way to look at it.
So I think so.
So how do we, I really do think that's an amazing way to take a look at it, between I'm choosing to do these things, so that way it is an abundance, versus I have to do these things, and now that kind of overwhelms me. So how do we switch our mentality? How do we get people to switch that mentality?
Yeah, so when we are in this, I have to, I'm a victim. When I have to do this, I have to clean my house, I have to go pick up my kids, no, I'm not a victim. I actually do not have to do anything. Now, if I choose to not do these things, what is the consequences then I am going to pay? So a lot of time, if I'm choosing this versus I have to, I get in the point of, oh, okay, if I'm not choosing to do this,
right,
what is the price I am willing to pay? The price I'm willing to pay is huge when I choose to do something versus I have to. So I'm shifting from victim to empowerment, from victim to I am a leader. So when I'm choosing something or choosing not to, what price am I willing to pay? So let's say we're going to go from I have to clean my house to I'm choosing to clean my house. I have to come from the victim perspective. I'm choosing to, it's from the point of the leader. Oh, I'm choosing not to. So if I'm choosing not to, my house is going to be a mess. Do I love to work in a messy environment? No. Why? It doesn't set me up to win. I feel like, how can I be in an environment of mess when my mind is clean? That doesn't work for me. I am actually choosing to, I love cleaning my house. Why? Because I come from a place of choice.
That's awesome.
With my kids, I have to pick up my kids. No, I really don't. I'm choosing to. Why? Because I love them. Because I'm not willing to pay the consequences of forgetting them somewhere and them thinking that I don't love them. I mean, everything. If you choose everything on your schedule to come in, you're like, oh, I'm choosing this because I love it. Because this is the place I'm coming from. Does that make sense?
No, it makes great sense. And I'm reminded of this victim mentality versus empowerment mentality.
Yeah.
And I think so. I think it's very powerful in itself, because I don't think people really understand the power of their words and how it affects their mentality. And so I guess then how do we move forward? We talked about going from victim mentality to empowerment mentality, choosing versus I have to. Now, let's talk about the role of vulnerability in risk taking and personal growth, because you mentioned that, hey, I'm choosing to clean my house because it sets me up for success. It sets me up to win. So how does being vulnerable and risk taking and personal and professional growth set you up for winning?
Well, for me, it's everything. My mind gets to be very clear. So, for example, right now on this podcast, we are on it's okay for the audience to know that we are on the phone. I am not out there doing 10,000 things on the same time. I am in my office, standing up, the exact same way than I would be if Tim was across from me with the entire audience. I also have on my screen a beautiful beach with a sunrise. This keeps me from being distracted. I'm here. I'm on the beach, and all of the listeners are there sitting on the beach for me. I use my mind to imagine, and I go over like every single person, listener is right there. And you and I, Tim, are in a conversation to really deliver value to them. For me, that vulnerability, that putting myself into being focused, that's my mind being very clear about what I am here to do. Setting an intention is the key to that success, is the key to that mindset. My intention here is to deliver value with you. That way, your audience, your listeners can get so much value out of this podcast. So when you have an intention, you set yourself up to win. And for that, you get to have vulnerability. Because there is some days where my intention, my feelings cannot come in the middle of my commitment. My commitment doesn't care about my feelings. As a business owner, and that's a huge part, Tim. I can tell you for the past 3 Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I was in a training room with so many students, training them, and I did that Friday, Saturday, Sunday. What if I would wake up the next morning being, oh, I'm tired, oh, I have this, I'm going to cancel that. No, my commitments are my commitments. I get to create my win on whatever it is I need.
When we talk about our intention, and you talked about this, and I was really thinking about discipline and motivation, and you said our commitments don't care about our feelings. So how do we then get comfortable being uncomfortable? What are some things that we can do to practice that, to get out of our comfort zones, to grow?
So when you are in the state of being comfortable in the uncomfortable, you get to be so in touch with yourself. Because there is some days where uncomfortable looks different than some other days. So you get to meet yourself where you're at. So for example, 2 weeks ago, I had a surgery. Well, my commitment doesn't, my feeling doesn't care about my commitment. And I also get to see that, wow, I did not realize that I was going to be put totally asleep. And that was a real surgery. I had not at all understood, for me, the concept of, Katia, hello, you went asleep. Is this a surgery? This is not just like a little tooth extraction. This is really a surgery. It's a bone graft. So my body has to recover. So I got to also get grace with myself, to meet myself where I'm at. So on the week after the surgery, my feeling doesn't care about my commitment looks a little bit different than it is this week when I'm fully healthy. So we get to meet ourselves where we are at and acknowledge seasons. There are seasons where I concentrate on the business. There are seasons where I concentrate on my marriage. There are seasons where I concentrate on, whatever it is, like, working in my yard. So understanding, having grace with yourself and understanding then what season am I in, then am I going to concentrate for those next 90 days. It's super important for you to meet your goals. And that's the intention. I know my intention.
Yep. No, and that's really awesome how you say meet yourself where you are. So we talked about, what we haven't talked about yet is procrastination. We talked about, becoming vulnerable, taking risks, how your commitments, they don't care about your feelings, coming full circle back to meeting yourself where you are because there's a season for everything. Now, how do we stop people from procrastinating? Like, what is the biggest thing that you see that people come up with when it comes to procrastination?
Okay. So the same way I don't believe in overwhelm, I don't believe in procrastination. So my invitation to any time that we use the word procrastination, we change that word and we flip it. We flip it to, what am I avoiding? Procrastination is not really procrastination. That doesn't exist. It's an avoidance. So what am I avoiding? And why am I avoiding it? When we change that word to what am I avoiding, we're really facing the reality. And then we go and we dive deep. So for example, I know I get to do that paper because it's not the have to, because now we switch from the have to, oh my gosh, I get to do this because I'm choosing to do this. So already when we change the intention from the have to I get to, or to I'm choosing to, we already have something. Now, if we arrive flat out on the deadline, it's like, what is coming up for me? Then I have a resistance about getting this done early. Or what is it about the resistance that's coming up from me choosing a date that's not setting me up to win? At the end of the day, it's that. Now, if there's things that I do sometimes, then I take on that I want to create where I'm like, oh, wow, I totally overshoot on that. So what's underneath of this? Wow, I was not intimate with the detail, for example, of this project to deliver for a client. This client wanted a proposal. Wow, I didn't realize I missed the detail. So where does that come from? Not being in intimacy. Okay, where else is that showing up in my life? Wow, huge. Because one of the things that I do is let me renegotiate. I renegotiate with myself when I see then what was underneath of me not being, finished, especially like, I like to be finished like an hour or two of any of my by when. And if I see them, I will not. I renegotiate with me. Why? Because being my word and being in integrity with myself is everything. This is where the worthiness comes in. Every time you are not your word, every time you are a lack of integrity with your own word, you are knocking down what is integrity for you. Therefore, low self-worth and a lot of feeling coming up. So it's really not procrastination. It's what am I resisting? What did I not see? So look at it from a neutral place versus like a self-beat up, and then go underneath. What was my resistance? What happened? What was I not intimate with? Really, like I had a proposal for a client wanted to hire me for two of his tasks, and we got down to the point, and I'm like, wow, I'm not finished an hour early. What's that? What's that about? And looking under it, I wasn't sure. I actually wanted to take the client, so I had to look at what was that and what was under that, and then I was like, oh, okay, totally got it. And then renegotiated with the client for a couple of hours. Totally wanted to work with this client, I discovered, and went for it. But that was my word.
When you talk about your, having integrity with yourself, I think that's super huge. I know a lot of people probably, and I'm not sure in your line of work how often you come into contact with people who are really worried about integrity with everybody else, but then don't apply that same integrity to themselves.
Yeah,
and then the manifestations of that.
Oh yeah, that's cute. Yeah, Go ahead. No, go ahead. Like I love where you're going.
And so I was going to say, what can you explain to people of what that looks like? Because I know we do it every day. And I say we as in a broader term, because no one's perfect. And we always have to renegotiate with ourselves at the end of the day. I have a very similar to you. I write down my big wins every single day. And I have my 3 things I'm going to do every single day. And if I don't get to them, usually I will force myself to get to them because I just can't not do it at this point. It's just super habit forming. And then I write down my big wins to make sure I give myself credit for all the good things I did do and not beat myself up for all the things I didn't do. But what does it look like when people have the integrity with everybody else, but not themselves, and then they feel like they're not being successful? So can you explain what that looks like?
Yeah. So it's huge. People will go out of their way to do things for others and then don't do for themselves. And I would say it starts with a lack of vision. For me, I'm very clear about my vision. I'm very clear about where I'm going. Therefore, I have a roadmap. So I think at the core is people who are not very clear with their vision. The second thing then I would say is also learning how to say no. Comes from wanting to be liked. There's many people who don't like me, and I can tell you that all of the clients who hire me, they don't hire me to be their friend. They don't hire me because they like me. They hire me because they know I'm going to get them to the result that they wanted to creating, and I will develop the leader into them. So when people are not setting themselves up to win, it's really looking at what's underneath that, what's underneath saying yes to everybody else and not to yourself, letting yourself down. And a lot of time it's a lack of worthiness. This is what I'm experiencing most of the time. And not being in touch with, we're going back to that scoreboard. I mean, imagine having a buy when, for me it's a buy when. So for example, I was just with a client who, right before I got on the call with you, who she texted me SOS, and I was, and so I got on the phone very quickly, and I asked her for a buy when. Like I was like, okay, buy, in an hour, so that's going to be your buy when. In 1 hour, you send me a text, and this is done. One end of story. Now she has a buy when. There is no time for psychological assessment, for her being in her head, thinking of things she doesn't need to think about. So a lot of time we also are not there, not doing things because we're in our head. People are like, oh, I want this to be perfect. There is no perfection. Perfection doesn't exist. So you're setting yourself up to fail in the first place versus moving the needle forward. So this is huge when people are like, oh, I'm doing everything for everybody, but I don't do it for me. It's because I want perfection, or I'm like, no, you don't. It's resistance about moving the needle forward. It's you loving spending so much time in your head, thinking, and doing nothing. Because thinking doesn't produce results. Thinking produces nothing more than holding you back and holding you back and holding you back. When being in motion, being in urgency gets you to your goal.
No, absolutely. Action over thoughts. You got to have a thought, but actions, definitely drive the train forward. And so, while you were talking, I was thinking about your 4 pillars, and I really like how you tied it to your name, the Rave pillars, right? So responsibility, authenticity, vision, and then finally enrollment into one of your programs. So I would say, how does that contribute? How do those 4 pillars contribute to what we just talked about today into setting yourself up for winning?
Well, responsibility is I am responsible for everything. So that means that being responsible is the opposite of being a victim. I have to versus I get to, I'm choosing to. Responsibility will change the way you talk, will change the way you think, will transform the way you produce results, because I'm responsible of it all. So meaning, if there is, 10 pounds on my scale, well, wow, where was I not in touch with my results? Where did I eat too much? Where did I don't know, like whatever it would be, if my scale was 10 pounds, more, really looking at it from a place of, wow, where did I go? Versus, well, you don't understand. I went to a party, there was a cake, it was presented to me. I didn't want to not be polite. And why am I saying all this? Because I've heard it all. And those are things that I have heard. So coming from a place of, if you don't have money on your bank account, you are responsible for that. I mean, this is a game changer, responsibility, because you get to own it. Where have you not gone to have the amount of money you have in your bank account? And I know people don't like to hear that. And it's the same thing. The results in your business are not there. Okay. Well, coming from a place of responsibility, what's in the gap? So that was responsibility. Authenticity. We get to be authentic. We get to be real. That means then looking at the reality. Being authentic is like, how often do you take something on your plate you don't want to do just because you don't want to say no? You're inauthentic. That's a lie. So for me, authenticity is a huge core value. Being in integrity is a huge core value. So being authentic with how you feel and letting know that my inside meets my outside. Meaning you can meet everybody, all my friends, my spouse, my kids. Who am I here in front of you is the person that I am behind closed doors. Authenticity. Vision. Having vision is what drives everything. The moment you have a vision, everything is not aligned with your vision, you say no to it because it's not aligned. So when you have your vision, you're clear about your vision, then it's very easy to have everything aligned. So how do we work on saying no and being very clear about our vision? And last but not least, enrollment. Enrollment is really being enrollment. For me, enrollment is not a thing. Enrollment is enrolling people into their vision. It's whether I am on a call where I'm going to enroll a prospect into being a client, I just enroll them into their vision. I enroll them into, oh my God, this is what I see for you. And I see so big for people, then they're like, oh my gosh, I was thinking so small. So enrollment is a way of life. And we enroll all the time. We can enroll people into our own mediocrity, or we can enroll them into our greatness. And we enroll, you know, when my husband wants to eat, sushi and I want to eat Italian, one will win. the one usually with the most energy wins. You know, so if I am really set on eating Italian, I'm gonna be like, come on, baby. Like, I think, don't you want to remember when we went to Tuscany, when we ate in this little, I mean, I will go so out of my way, you know, to enroll him into eating Italian food versus sushi. And if he wants to eat sushi, he's going to enroll me because master enrollers are very enrollable. So enrollment. So those are, the 4 pillars. And I mean, as you can see, I'm very passionate about it. I could go on hours talking about this.
No, and that's what I really got from meeting you virtually online and looking through your stuff is that your passion for people and helping people achieve their dreams and reach success and win really came through. And all too often, I don't hear people talk about winning.
Yeah.
Winning is important. Yeah. When did winning stop becoming important?
Yeah. Well, winning is important, and how can we create win-win? Because a lot of times people look at winning and they're like, oh, I don't want to do this because, you know, underlining they don't want to win because that means one person's going to lose. What would it look like to go every single day of our lives creating win-win? For me, I create win-wins everywhere. Me winning doesn't mean that the other people are losing. It means that the other people are winning as well. So when I have this concept of winning is never accidental, it's because I create wins everywhere. And I want to take those people who want to work with me to their vision. That's a win-win. It's a win-win for me because that's a huge part of my vision is to create a world of love and unity and connection. And yes, of course, do I make money out of my business? Of course I do. And I take people there because it's not about the money, it's about the values you bring. And really you make the world a better place at the end of the day.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I really appreciate you, taking the time to talk to us today and share your vision and share your passion with us. I would like to ask though, before we go, if you could wrap up into like a brief statement or sentence, what is it that if it was a perfect world and you could help change one thing, what would that be?
It starts with me. As simple as that, Tim. It starts with you. When you look at yourself and you're like, I will be responsible. I'm not a victim. I will do everything in authenticity. My word will match my inside and my mind. Anything was not aligned with my vision, I will say no. And enrolling into creating a world of love and unity and connection, and whatever that world looks like to you, like really being enrolled into creating win-win, it starts with you. And then after you walk the walk, one person at a time. As simple as that.
So if you got some value out of this episode, I would like to ask if you could go to Katia Rave's page, and on there in the links in the description down below, what you'll be able to find is the links to her Winning is Never Accidental landing page. And from there, you'll be able to reach out to her and her team and be able to reach out to all of her resources and everything that she has to offer. And then maybe you could reach out to her and start your own journey and stop thinking about what you're going to do and start putting things into action. So if you got some value of that, please definitely go check out her stuff. It's going to be worth your while. So Katia, thank you so much for stopping by and having this conversation today.
Thank you so much, Tim, for having me, for searching for me and contacting me. The honor was all mine.
As always, thank you for stopping by and listening to this episode, and I really hope that you enjoyed it. Before we go, I would like to ask a favor of you, if I could. If you could please share this episode with 1 or 2 people who you think might like this topic. If you haven't followed or subscribed on the platform that you're listening to this on, please hit that button and the alert icon so that you know when we post another episode. If you got some value out of this episode, please leave a review or a comment so we can help spread the show to people who just haven't found the show yet but are interested in the same topics that you are. Again, thanks for stopping by. I'm Tim Staten, stating the obvious.